there's definitely some schools of parenting thought now that you just shouldn't discipline your kids ever. But realistically, there are consequences in the adult world too. So it's helpful if kids understand, to some extent, that there are consequences for some actions that are just never acceptable, like aggression, right? So how do we create consequences that are effective? There's a couple different pieces that you really want to make sure are a part of them to make them effective. One of the first huge ones is you really need the consequences to exist in the context of an otherwise warm, loving relationship, parent-child relationship. Because if your child only receives consequences, at some point they just stop caring and they stop being motivated to listen. And you're gonna get a lot more lying, because if kids are just trying to avoid consequences, they lie. So, warm, loving relationship. Consequences also need to be part of a planned strategy of discipline. So you have to plan it, and your kid has to know that's the plan. So for example, that might look like, hey bud, we're creating some rules at home. So one of those is we have to use gentle hands, can't hurt each other's bodies. If you hurt anybody else's body, then you're gonna have to take a time out. We're setting that rule when nobody's been hurt. So we're setting that rule when everybody's calm, and we're just establishing, hey, this is a new rule that we're creating. Some people like to have family meetings to establish those. It's not absolutely necessary, but it doesn't hurt. Context of a warm relationship, and then when you enforce the consequence, ideally you want to be calm. Remind them of the rule that they did this behavior, therefore this is the consequence, and you're calmly enforcing it. Having a planned consequence that you're giving consistently every time that behavior happens is where the magic is. Also want to make sure that they're not getting that consequence too often for it to be effective. They should be getting access to the things that are rewarding for them more often than they're getting consequences, or they're going to lose their motivation. For example, if I get my video games taken away every time I'm rude, but I'm rude 30 times a day, how much time am I actually getting with my video games? At some point, I'm just gonna realize that I'm never gonna get to